Oh, there we go.
We'll wait one more minute as people are entering.
Well, good evening, everybody. On behalf of all of us at PA IPL, we welcome you to our second Zoom of the series Active Hope. Tonight's theme is environmental justice, and we're so glad that you could join us. Our four-part Zoom series this year is grounded in the work of Joanna Macy, who's developed ways to approach the overwhelming circumstances of a global nature, not by solving them or bypassing them, but by thoughtful, intentional, spiritual, and political engagement. Macy explains that we're living in the time of the great turning, when our choices, actions, and attitudes are essential to create and sustain a right relationship with the planet. Joanna developed the spiral shown here as an open invitation to a spiritual practice in hard times or overwhelming circumstances. Our thoughts and activities in each session of this series will be centered around the four themes of this spiral. And the themes are gratitude, honoring our pain, seeing in new ways, and then going forth. Exploring this spiral is best done in a group, in community, as we are here tonight. We ask that everyone honor the working agreement shown here as we delve into this spiral together. And the working agreement has 5 things to consider: speaking for yourself, starting sentences with I, bringing your presence and participation, we want you to speak up, ask before sharing anything offered here to anyone outside the group because our stories are our own. The most important thing is that we hear one another and experience being heard. And lastly, we consider ourselves a community of practice.
And if we listen, Pope Francis speaks about environmental justice when he says in his encyclical Laudato Si, we must not forget the grave social consequences of climate change. It is the poorest who suffer the most. And in the 1700s, Quaker leader John Woolman said, "The produce of the earth is a gift from our gracious Creator to the inhabitants. And to impoverish the earth now, to support outward greatness, appears to be an injury to the succeeding age." And so what is environmental justice? We'd like to share a 3-minute video in a very, very concise way explains what environmental justice is. Give me 1 second to...
Environmental justice really reflects the fundamental reality that vulnerable communities are all too often subject to the disproportionate burden of pollution and contamination. At the end of the day, when we're talking about environmental impacts, at the heart of it are real people's lives. And if you think about one child who's in her home that maybe has lead paint on the walls, she's drinking water from the tap that might have lead contamination in it. She plays in a playground that has arsenic in the soil and is developing asthma because of the polluting facilities next door. She goes into her school that has mold inside. These are real things that happen on an everyday basis. Not everybody has the ability to simply uproot themselves from a community where they've lived for decades, where their families raise them, where they raise their children. People don't have the financial mobility necessarily to simply get up and go. How do we combat environmental injustice? There are things like litigation. That means continue fighting in the courts, continue fighting to strengthen existing legislation, fighting to ensure that existing legislation is actually being enforced. Things like community organizing, public education, mobilizing the base, and elevating voices. There's also things like using media as an outlet to get your point across. In today's day and age, especially with this administration, I think there are an enormous amount of hurdles in how to address environmental injustices. But the reality is we have to keep fighting. Great gains do not occur overnight. They take sometimes decades. I truly believe that environmental justice is the modern-day civil rights issue of our time.
So the first part of the spiral is grounding ourselves in gratitude. If we were to face the dire circumstances of our time or of our own personal lives, both the facts and the emotions, we will be able to do so more resiliently if we start by grounding ourselves in gratitude. And we would do this with intention. Gratitude isn't an innate talent, but it's a skill that can be learned and grown. Gratitude isn't dependent on external circumstances. Connecting with a sense of gratitude, while available to all, must also be practiced in order to be available. Fear, anxiety, and a sense of scarcity, so abundant in this time of coronavirus, can make it more difficult to access, but it's not impossible. Practicing allows a kind of spiritual gratitude muscle to grow and strengthen. And so here are some quotes for us to ponder about gratitude. Folks, we're in the middle of a really strong thunderstorm here. I just wanted to alert you that if I suddenly disappear, it's because of this really heavy rain and the electricity going off. But now let's move into honoring our pain. If we were to stop at the first point at the spiral, we might feel good, but not for long and not as deeply as possible. Joanna Macy tells us that to be able to move and shift out of stuck places, both emotionally and intellectually, we must do the hard work of facing complex, difficult emotions. We must honor our pain by naming it, even feeling it. It is in doing so that we're a part of creating liberation from it, dissipating the power of pain to contort our behaviors into ugly or harmful shapes. In this culture, we do avoidance of pain really well. This second part of the spiral doesn't come easy, but it's crucial. Finding and creating both safe and brave space to be able to give shape and name to your pain, especially when it's done in community, allows transformation to take place. We're a part of a great collective existence that holds pain, but also holds other possibilities. Here's a quote from Joanna Macy. Indeed, in every spiritual tradition, compassion, which literally means to suffer with, is prized as an essential and noble capacity. And now let's listen to what Joanna Macy had to say about honoring our pain in this video clip entitled On Uncertainty.
Even though I talk about so convincingly, I know the great turning is happening. At the same time, I know that we're not sure how the story will end. I want so much to feel sure. I want to be able to tell people, don't worry, it's going to be okay. And you know what? I realize that would not be doing anybody a favor. First of all, we can't know. But secondly, if somehow we could be given a pill to be convinced, don't worry, it's going to turn out okay, would that elicit from us our greatest creativity and courage? No. It's that knife edge of uncertainty where we come alive to our truest power. So we do ourselves the favor. We honor ourselves to live with sufficient realism and dignity to know we're right with that knife edge of uncertainty. We don't know how it's going to come out. There are no guarantees. And we realize, well, wait, there aren't any guarantees anyway. There are no guarantees when you fall in love that you're going to have a lasting relationship. There are no guarantees when you go into labor that you're going to have a healthy delivery, healthy baby. There are no guarantees when you put seeds in the soil that there'll be sufficient rain and warmth for a bumper crop. There never has been guarantee for human life. And it's in that uncertainty, and it's like an exquisite wind and fire of uncertainty, that is the nature of life. All the wise ones tell us that. That's where we come alive.
Here are a few slides for us to ponder honoring our pain with environmental justice.
And so to the following reflection, I ask you to respond, we have forgotten who we are. We have alienated ourselves from the unfolding of the cosmos. We have become estranged from the movements of the earth. And we have turned our backs on the cycles of life. We say, we have forgotten
Who
who
we
we
are.
are.
We have sought only our own security. We have exploited simply for our own ends. We have distorted our knowledge. We have abused our power. And we say, we have forgotten who we are.
We are. And now the land is barren, and the waters are poisoned, and the air is polluted. And we say, we
We
have
have
forgotten
forgotten who
who
we
we
are.
are.
Now the forests are dying, and the creatures are disappearing, and humans are despairing. And we say, we have forgotten who we are.
And so we ask forgiveness. We ask for the gift of remembering. We ask for the strength to change. And we say, we
We
have
have
forgotten
forgotten
who
who we
are.
are.
And let us all respond to the following. We journey together. In the face of growing darkness, we
Journey together.
in the face of ecological decline, we
Journey together.
in the face of social upheaval, we journey,
Together.
and in the face of growing uncertainty,
We
journey
journey together. In the face of growing darkness, we journey together toward the light. As we search for glimpses of truth,
we
we
journey
journey
together.
together. As we search for signs of possibility, we journey together. As we search for heralds of a new era, we journey together. As we search for angels of hope,
We
we journey together. As we search for glimpses of truth, we journey together toward new levels of meaning.
And as we build our world out of chaos, we journey
together.
As we build our world out of shatter illusions of superiority, we
journey together.
As we build our world out of our inadequate institutions, we journey together. As we build our world out of our unfair sharing of resources, we journey
together. As we build our world out of chaos, we journey together toward a new era of justice.
As the universe unfolds,
we journey together.
As the universe unfolds through spontaneous communion,
we journey together.
As the universe unfolds through new levels of meaning, we
journey together.
As the universe unfolds through new forms of life, we journey together.
As the universe unfolds, we journey together in God's great becoming. The third part of the spiral is seeing with new eyes. In other words, seeing in new ways. If we equip ourselves with the protection of gratitude, and if we've journeyed into the land of honoring our pain, what we just might find on the other side is a new way of beholding our circumstance. New ways that generate healing and move us away from harm of ourselves or others. Leaning into our connection with others, we can consider new perspectives, help us see in new ways, help us entertain what may well be impossible, but may shed light on other actual possibilities. In just a moment, we'd like to break into small groups to ponder the following idea: when I made a difference. Recounting incidents from our own lives, we recognize our capacity to create positive change. This is all the more valuable since we're not accustomed to sharing this kind of experience or understanding it as power. So what we would like to do is have you think of a time in your life when something important and good happened because of what you said or did. You can recapture that scene in your mind, play it back for yourself. And then in your breakout group, as you listen to people who'd like to share their story, please help discern the qualities in that person that were at play. And then when each person has finished sharing, feel free to share your discernment about that person's qualities. We put this task in our chat so that people can focus on it once they get into their rooms. You can click on the chat and see it again as you're trying to think about what you might like to share.
Welcome back, everyone. I think the last of you are coming back now. Okay, let me let's just take a few moments as we come back from our breakout session. And if anyone would like to share a thought, something that struck you in your group, or maybe something that you wanted to share and maybe there wasn't quite enough time. But if anyone would like to share with the entire group, I think we're small enough tonight that you can just raise your physical hand and share. So if anyone would like to share some of the wisdom of your small group. Greg? You're on mute, Greg.
I continue to be astounded, and I shouldn't be, by the power of vulnerability, of people being vulnerable in those groups and the power of that, and how it encourages the others to be vulnerable, and what we learn from that vulnerability, both those who are vulnerable and those who experience it, is always very powerful.
Thank you, Greg. Anyone else?
Joyce was in the middle of a thought, and I would kind of like to hear the end if she'd like to share it.
Okay, Joyce, you're on.
Thank you. In our group, we had been talking about planting seeds and not knowing necessarily how those seeds will come to fruition. And I was just sharing real briefly that I was a teacher, school teacher at one time. And I taught 6th grade, and I left to teach in other places and returned to that school after one of the students that I had taught had been in a car accident as a high school student and was killed in that accident. And when I entered the place where the other teachers were, one of them presented me with a holy card that I had given to that student at Christmas time, and I just had written a little message on the back. And she said to me, this was Lizzie Bohannon was the girl's name. This was Lizzie's. She treasured this. And every year in this parish, they would bring something of themselves to put on the Christmas tree. And that's what she had brought to put on the Christmas tree. And it was still there after the car accident. So of course she took it off and she gave it back to me. But I was so touched. I never thought that that would have such an impact on her life. And I think relating back to what we're trying to do with social justice, as I was listening to everything tonight, it's so hard. The work is so hard because you do not see the results so many times, but you have to just keep planting the seeds in whatever way you can. And some of us are more vocal than others. Some of us are more quiet than others. So we have to find our own way to get our message across, but we have to just keep on trying because we never know.
Thank you, Joyce. How true. Anyone else? Okay, last chance. Anyone else? I am not one to, uh, certainly no one is being forced to share, but I do ask that you hold in your heart what was shared in your small groups. I truly believe that what we're meant to hear is often shared, and sometimes it's so sacred that it's really not meant to be shared in a larger group, but maybe held within our hearts. But if anyone does have one last thing to share before we move on, you are welcome. Okay, and so then I ask you to hold those in your heart, and I'm going to pull up our shared screen one more time. I hope it is the correct one. George? Is George with us? I cannot.
He's muted.
George, are you in the storm?
There he
No,
goes.
I'm here. I forgot that when we come back to the large group, it muted me. Sorry.
Okay. I thought you were in the storm. Okay.
Yeah. The fourth and last part of the spiral is called going forward. With the first 3 points of the spiral, we're cultivating resilience, building stamina, and growing emotional and spiritual intelligence. The fourth point on the spiral is where we take what we've integrated as individuals and as a group practicing together and apply it to our lives, to our communities, and to society. The hope is that in going forth, you've been strengthened so that you can be of service to what Joanna calls the great turning, that you might now embody the courage and creativity that's required of all of us in this time of crisis, in this time of opportunity. Here are some quotes as we contemplate going forward.
And so we'd like to end with this song. It's called A Place at the Table. And it's by Laurie True, an author, a songwriter. And the refrain of the song is, God will delight when we are creators of justice and joy. If you would like to mute yourself, if you're not already muted, it is a very easy chorus. Everyone is invited to the table, and God will delight when we are creators of justice and joy. If you would like to sing along, but just because when we all sing together on Zoom, we're all over the place. If you mute yourself, but sing your hearts out, it is a beautiful, beautiful song, and God will delight.
Justice and joy.
And so we would like to thank you for joining us tonight. And we invite you, you'll be getting a notice, I'm not sure, probably in the fall for our next Joanna Macy presentation. But we invite you to go on the website of the Pennsylvania Interfaith Power and Light. If you already receive emails about advocacy, about creation care, about spiritual care, we invite you to share those with others as well, because certainly everyone is welcome, everyone is invited to the table, and let us be instruments of God's justice and joy in everything that we do. And so we thank you. Thanks to Kathy for helping us with the technology. Kathy's on our staff at PA IPL. Thank you to George as well for co-hosting with me. And thank you for all of you for attending. Okay, thank you and God bless.
Thank you.
And for Greg, who does wonderful trees. Greg, we're tending our trees and they're doing well.
Good. There's more coming.
I know, I know. Excellent, excellent. Okay, God bless everybody.
Bye.